kind of apply, like a lot of what we did, you won't really need for a starting project kind of like this. So we're at a point where we're ready to put in walls, specifically the core, right? So until we, to do stairs, you kind of need a core wall to build off of. We can make stairs to our heart's content, but until it's in an application, really doesn't make any sense. So let's go to I believe I loaded in the core file onto level 1. So you should see a plan that looks similar to this, and then we have our core wall. So again, that's just the CAD plan. So let's go ahead and isolate just that CAD plan. So I'll select it, and then remember I can do my temporary hide and isolate through doing the bottom eyeglasses. So we'll go ahead and isolate this element. So there we go. We just have our grids with our typical build out for the core. Right, and I think what we'll do is we're just going to build. We're going to build the box. So we know how to make the box with the walls. Instead of doing that, maybe we'll just pick the line. So let's go to the wall tool, and before we do any of that, I need to query what the CAD model is asking me. Right. So the CAD model has a designated distance for those walls. So generally, what I'll do is I'll come and do DI. Right, and it's kind of a query for dimension, but it's also queuing you up to do a dimension string. And this is kind of leading in dimension strings. I don't necessarily always go over because it kind of becomes inherent as we go along through these pieces. You get little snippets each time. So I'll do DI, and that's going to bring me up to an align dimension. I always use align dimensions, and I'm going to click either side of that wall to give me a dimension. So I know that wall is 1'6", and it's just a temporary dimension. I don't need it. I'm going to delete it off. So that tells me that I need to make a wall that's 1'6" in structure. Now I could easily come in and just put in any wall and then kind of fudge it as I go along, but if I know what it can be ahead of time, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and do wall, architectural, and then I'm going to look inside my properties before I start drawing that wall and see if I have an SGA core wall already loaded inside my family or inside my types of walls that allow me to get to that typology. So in this case, we have foundation / core wall at 32 inches. So we know we need a 1'6", which is 18 inches. So we need one at 18 inches, and it looks like we do not have one at 18 inches. So let's make one at 18 inches. So to make a new wall, remember we're just going to duplicate an existing wall. Now these are doing structural foundation walls, core walls. You can see that they're at 6 KSI, so there's obviously cluing me into that this is a structural wall. If it's already defined for you, let's build off of that. Let's just make it the strongest one. We can always go back and change it later. So we'll start at 15 inches, and I'm going to edit that type, and I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to call this one 18 inches. Now we have the 18 inch for the project. Delete that off, and click OK. And then I'm going to edit that structure, and it's at 1'3". I'll change that 1'3" to 1'6". So this is why I kind of build off existing ones, because generally if it's already existing and it has most of the content I need developed, all I have to do is change the thickness. And I'll click OK. Now instead of using the typical draw and trying to line up every item, I'm going to use my pick line tool. So the pick line tool and the pick face tool work similar. One is going to build off existing geometry, the other one's going to build on existing lines. In our case, we have existing CAD lines, so I'll click on pick line. And I'm not worrying about the height yet. I'm going to do that a little later. We may just take this and let it go the whole way up the wall. I don't know yet. Sometimes we'll do it from floor to floor, depending on what we're trying to achieve. Other times we'll do it as it goes straight through, and we'll do it as a shaft opening for it. Okay. So other things to pay attention to. So right now when I'm doing a pick line tool, this location line is of the utmost importance. If I do it at core center line, right, it's going to go to that core boundary. Right, so remember we had the core boundary? It's going to go to the center of that core boundary. So I may have one side that's thicker than the other side. It's always going to pick my wall center to be the center of that wall. In our case, we have an even side on each one, so I can get away with wall center line. Right? But I don't have a wall center line to pick off of, right? So I don't have any center lines. So if I pick on this left one, right, it's loading my shaft wall right on that center line that I picked. So I would want to undo that. I want to get it so it's loading on one side or the other from this. So I would say I'm going to do finish face exterior. And if I hover over that, you'll see the little dotted line that appears. So now if I hit tab on the keyboard, it should flip and allow me to either pick around the whole base of those objects or that boundary, or if I kind of move my mouse one way or the other, it's going to allow me to pick one side or the other. If I needed to go inside, again, I would then do finish face interior. And I will do interior. So in our case, we're going to use the outside and do finish face interior. Now you'll notice one thing about using these, and what really gets me and bugs me, is at least doing this from CAD plans and taking somebody's CAD plan that doesn't necessarily know how Revit works. If I'm selecting my CAD plan so you can see what the walls look like. Now, you draft in CAD with wall openings, right? So we draw in plan, we say there's an opening, you put the dotted line. In our case, that doesn't help us, right? That doesn't help us at all, because we need to have that completely situated around it. So it's one thing to keep in mind when you're doing Revit content from a CAD plan. You really only need a single line for that room boundary. You don't need to draw out the wall lines if you are using CAD for that particular procedure.
And then you would punch the openings instead.
Exactly. Yeah. Then we punch the openings, because we don't want to have to build out separate walls for the headers.
Right.
We want to have that as continuous as possible. Mm-hmm. So in this case, what I would do is I would, say on where the wall openings are, I would pick one line, and then I would drag that wall all the way down there. And then I would remove the one side and I would drag that wall all the way across. Right. And then same thing at the left or the right side here. Drag that wall. That way I in terms of, space on the computer, so on and so forth, it's making sure that I don't have, I'm really not spending a lot of computer resources trying to calculate multiple walls in something as simple as a rectangular block. Right. And then once I have that, then I need to actually kind of get the wall openings in there. So I know that this core wall, I even have multiple walls up here. So even so, be aware with the CAD lines, if it's a single CAD line that's then pieced together, it's still not, it's going to read it as separate lines, right? So now that I have that, I know that this item, I would check and make sure that this is going to go all the way up. I'd find where my change is. And if I look at my roof plan, it's going all the way up to the roof plan. So this would be a case where I would say, you know what, I'm not really focusing on being accurate and correct on how we're going to build the core. I'm going to say that this core wall is shooting all the way through all the floors and going all the way up to roof. And making sure that my plans match up as well. So that's one other reason why I would do this. So I would go to the properties of this, and instead of doing, right now it's at a base constraint of grade, no base offset, my unconnected height, instead of doing an actual height with it and having an offset, I'm going to take my unconnected height, I'm going to bring it all the way up to the roof level. And I'm going to do a 0 foot on my offset.
Did you, join these, or did it naturally join them, or did you?
It'll join them by default on their own, on its own.
If you just drag it to.
Yep. If you just drag it to the end, it'll by default drag it on its own. And if I turn on the fine view, that should give me a better look at what's happening with the wall joins. I know from the way you guys set this up that you do a coarse fill with it, so it goes black on coarse fill. So when you look at it in plan, it's always just black. That is core.
Yeah.
Yep.
still show it as. Do you have to?
Okay, that's okay. So I got most of my walls in now. You know, I'm going to think about, I'm going to have this same core assembly up the entire system here, right? The core walls I know in real life are going to continue on through the slabs and all the way up. But if I approach building it this way, that means I'm going to have to go to every floor and copy up doors, right? So I'm going to think of this as a sandwich of items, right? So instead of having my walls continue all the way up to the roof, I'm going to treat it as, since this is a repetitive element that goes from floor to floor to floor to floor to floor, I'm going to combine it into a group and then copy that group up from floor to floor, okay? So let's do that. Let's go ahead and select over, make sure I use my filter to grab only my walls.
Quick question.
Yes.
If the group, so if you make this a group and there's a lot of different floor heights in the building, does that mean that you need a group per floor to floor height, or is it, can the group be edited?
Yes, and that's a good question, and we're going to see that. So if I have, and it might be the case because yesterday we really didn't pay attention to floor heights. If I have a varying floor height, so that mechanical floor, there's going to have a separate group. So a group is like a block. If I edit one element inside that group, it's going to update all the other groups. So being really aware of, you know, this is when we'll actually figure out those levels too. So let's go ahead and just click OK. And then with my wall selected, all walls will work together if they are all the same wall. They may be multiple types, but they have the same similar properties. I can say that their top constraint are all up to level 2. Right? Okay. And in this case, because we group it, it kind of removes that constraint capability, right? It kind of says, okay, I know you're constrained, but I'm going to allow you to move up. Now, hosting elements are a different story. If I have a wall and I'm trying to group a series of doors, I need to take the walls with it. So just be aware of that. So let's just plop in the doors too while we're here. So we'll do architecture door. We'll do SGA single flush for now. Make sure our doors are in place. And have, let's see, another door there. That's a full swing door. Well, we can always change it later. Right, just want to get them in so it's close enough for us. And then I also want to get in my openings, right? So to do a wall opening, it's similar to the vertical openings that we started to do last class. As I come in and I'm going to do wall here, okay? And if I hover over it, it's going to show you that I can put, this is only for rectangular openings. If I need to make a circular opening or anything like the such that we did in the little kind of tutorial before this, then I'm going to need to do it as a actual editing the profile of that wall. So we'll come in and do wall. I'm going to click on wall. And then after click, so I do the click, and then I click the one I want to move, and then I can draw in my item, right? Now what's important to note about this is when I do that, that item is a separate piece of geometry. So this wall opening, you'll see, has properties that I can push and pull in it. So it's a void object. It's still a piece of geometry, it's just something that's cutting that wall. So what I would do is then use my grip editor to drag it over to each side where my walls are. And then I would continue on with each one. So do this one, do a wall opening here. So click the wall tool, wall opening tool, select the wall, and then I'm going to drag my rectangular opening in. Do the same thing on the right wall. Problems? Nope. So once I have those situated, what I'll do is then hide my underlayment, which is my CAD plan. So I'll hide that element. And I can see there's my core with wall openings, doors, etc. You can put in symbols when we get into detailing and drafting. I'm not going to put in a 3D elevator. We're going to load in a 2D Revit detail into that. So just need the walls. All right, so there's my walls, there's my core. I can go ahead at this point now and I can reset my temporary isolate hide. So I have those in. And then I want to go to a 3D view, right? Or an elevational view. Because what happens is now, yeah, let's go to the elevation. So let's go to one of our system elevations. We're going to need to create new elevations and new sections just for that area. So let's do that. Let's create areas for that. So on that same floor plan, level 1, let's draw a section through here and a section through here so we can see the heights of our opening. Okay, so to do that, I go to View, and then I have Section, and all I'm going to do is just draw my section through there, and then draw my other section through the other one. So that way I can see inside that item. And then under the category of sections, I should see under the pieces there, sections 3 and 4. So let's rename sections 3 and 4 to be core section A and then core section B. And you'll see my walls, one, if I look at the property of those walls now that I've opened that section, a lot of my walls are not going all the way up as they should. Some of them are defaulted down. So at this point I want to make sure that I bring them all up to a connected height. And I should have done this before. It doesn't look like it completely took. So I want to make sure that I filter only my wall. So even, like I said, even rectangular straight wall openings, the openings we made, those are also categorized as objects. So we only want walls in this case. And I'll click Apply, click OK. And I want to make sure that their top constraint goes all the way up to level 2. Now unfortunately the top offset, right, is something that's been changed. So we want to make sure that that's at 0 feet as well. And that should bring our walls all the way up. What is that? Ah, top offset on this. That's my wall opening right there. That's what that is. Okay, makes sense. So you'll see that I was kind of assuming that that was a wall. That's because it was 2D lines. So anytime you're doing editing like this as well, it's always advantageous to change the color so you can see what you're editing. And while we're in this section, we know that we want all of our opening heights to be at least 7'6", so we'll filter, make sure we're only selecting openings, and make sure that their height is, they have an offset, so our base offset and base constraints are all there, unconnected height is there, top offsets should be 0 feet, right, and then unconnected height should be 7'6". And I'll click Apply. And then we'll do the same thing in the other section. So we'll go to our core section B, turn that on to shaded, and we'll make sure that everything else is situated to this similar. Filter out, select my walls, make sure all of my walls are going up to level 2 with a top offset of 0 feet. Apply. I'll come in and make sure all of my rectangular straight openings are at an unconnected height. We'll do up to level 2, unconnected height at 7 foot 6 inches, which gives me my negative 7 foot 3 on the top offset.
So unconnected height is the opening height, right?
Yes. Well, you kind of got to read into it. So it's tricky on how these work. So the opening allows you to push and pull the object, and that's because it's allowing you to center that opening inside the wall. So I can constrain it as well as push and pull it from offsets on those sides. So I know that I want an unconnected height of 7 foot 6. I may want my opening a certain distance from the top of the ceiling, so it's giving me that ability to have that option.
And are you not showing the core walls going all the way up? You're just showing them going to level 2?
Correct.
For now?
Correct, because now what I'm going to do is once we have that done, let's go to the 3D view. Right, I don't see my core, so I need to obviously get to where my core is. A quick little, one thing we didn't talk about in this was the idea of this section box. So in a 3D view, I'm able to turn on, there's a line item for a section box. So I can turn that section box on, and what that does is it allows me to, in real time, dynamically slice this model up, right? I can go up and down with it. Another quick way to just get around that floor slice, right? We just want those core walls, is if I hover over the view cube, there's a little triangle that appears that it's called the context menu. And if I click on that, it's going to allow me to orient to a view, and I want to orient my view in this 3D object to be on, so orient to view, floor plans, I'm going to do level 1. And then I see my core. So what that had done was, if I rotate my model now, it took that section box that I had, and it basically sliced up the model for me to only look at the pie slice of level 1.
Can you go through that orient to view thing?
Yep, absolutely.
That's pretty cool.
Yep. So all I did was you got to look at the view cube, and if you hover over it, it's really hidden. I just recently realized this was here. I don't even know how long it's been there. It's because it's so hidden. So really paying attention to every little button does something magical for you in Revit. And it's usually the ones that are hidden that do the coolest stuff. So under that little triangle is the context menu, and then there's the orient to view, and then floor plans. So then I picked floor plan level 1. And what that does is it allows me to then, one, it's going to cut the model and give me a top view orthogonal of that. In my case, I wanted it to do that so I can grab those core walls as they are. And you'll see it takes the section box around our scope box because that scope box is driving a lot of the project area. I don't need the floor, so I'm going to hide the floor temporarily. And I don't need the property line, so I'm going to hide that temporarily. And I don't need my scope box, so I can even hide that temporarily. So now I just have my core walls and my doors and everything else. So all I need to do is come in, select everything, use my filter to grab only walls, or remove section box from there. And I'm going to make that a group. Alright, so remember to make a group, after I have everything selected, the group button is right next to the filter button, which is up there that says create group. And it'll take a minute to chug through that. There's quite a bit of content there.
What are you calling it?
I am calling it core. And I think there's another stair core, so we'll call the other one stair core. Okay. So that gives him a group of those objects. Now comes the did we do it right or did we do it wrong kind of area, because we took your 3D model and did the levels off your 3D model because I didn't have a section. So let's hope that your level to level is right. And it's even.
It's not even.
Oh!
The whole building.
So we're gonna
is
make
different.
it. We're gonna make
I
it.
mean, every floor is different.
Is every floor meant to
Well,
be different?
there's let's see, 2 floor-to-floor heights for units from the middle region of the building.
Mhm.
The retail levels are both different, and then the in-house levels are different. So there's
1, 2 are the same, 3, 4, or 5, 6.
there's 5 different floor-to-floor heights,
Yeah.
I think, total.
Okay. Great.
That's why I was wondering about the group thing. Like,
Yeah,
because
you're gonna
maybe
have-
it's less efficient even to do it. Is it well?
Yeah. Well,
let's see.
here's
There's some-
here's the other option. You could take. What you could do is. Let's do it. All right. Let's do it how you're gonna have to do it anyway. All right. So let's go to a section. So we'll go to section 2. So section 2 should take me through the whole building there. Or I can also do this in elevation since we don't have any building skin yet. And then I'm going to do CO for copy. And then one thing about this, right, is when I go to copy, depending on because there are walls in there, it's going to constrain it to that working plane. So you'll notice that in section I can't move it up and down, right? So in the options of the copy is this ability to deconstrain it, and then I can move it anywhere in the Z plane. And then I also want to check multiple, so I can go up in multiple iterations of it. Okay, so let's take my group, CO for copy, deselect constrain, make sure multiple's on, and then I'm going to use the level line as my reference for copying. And you'll see there, on each one of these I got to deselect constrain every time I do it. So what we're doing is kind of just getting it up to a point, because I know my openings are always going to have to be some set distance that's the same. I know my, another way I can handle this is by doing an array. You'll see that I'm getting to, as long as I'm copying level to level, I can ungroup each one of these. I don't have to keep them as a group. I can ungroup them all together. And then, oh, somebody just saved into the Dropbox. Who just saved? No?
Sorry.
Maybe me. Either way, it doesn't matter. I'm sitting there copying and doing my multiple array. And if I try to array this, right, it's going to constrain it into that same areas, right? Because there's this constrain button. I can try and do it, so let's go ahead and try and get it to go up. Yeah, so that's going to work. Sometimes it doesn't work, so making sure you check that constrain option. So I'm just going to go up a distance with it, and I'm going to say I want, 10 of them. And that way it gets them all the way up. I don't have to go one by one with it. And it's going to take it a minute to process. Man, yeah, you're right. Every floor height is different. That'll be changed. I think that'll be changed.
Luxury condos. See.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll definitely see. All right. So you can see in this case, doing the array, right, didn't get me my level lines, right? So I'm not doing every piece constrained. So sometimes that's not the best option either. Right, so what I would do then is say, okay, I know on this one I need to ungroup it, right, and then I'll come in and I would basically just ungroup every one of these. Actually, let's go to the elevation so we can see through it. And I know I've ungrouped my core. I would come in, select everything down there, filter it out so I have not views, no grids, only doors, rectangular openings, and walls. Click apply and click OK, and then actually I just want walls, so we'll filter that and just do walls. And then I would have to go into every single floor, right, and says because I've copied it from level to level, it's going to read that base constraint as a new level, level 2 of wherever it's at, and it's going to give it up, it's going to take it up to the next level, level 3, right? But because it was a group, it's going to ignore that top offset. So I want to make sure that top offset then is at 0. And it should bring that back down. So then it brings those back down for me. So it's not a lot of editing, right? It's just going from group to group then after having it, ungrouping them. So grouping it's an easy way to start copying them from top to bottom. And with that group selected, once I ungroup it, I don't have to come back in and reselect anything. I can deselect what is selected and only select the walls and then get them so that their top offset is at 0.
So do you have the walls going up the top of slab or bottom of slab?
Right now they're going from level line to level line.
Okay, all right.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So not until you're getting into like coordination reviews and things like that, or even sectional properties for this, like major sections, where we're looking at those conditions, do you even need to worry about it?
Okay, so then you would do a base offset or a top offset or something.
Yep, exactly. And then you're starting to put in reference planes, so I know all my 1 hour walls are going to go up to this reference plane so I can control where they're laying. And then I have, type 1 hour part B that's only going above, the ceiling height 6 inches. That's going to be another reference line.
Did you say then once you've had them all copied, you ungroup?
Yep, if you want to watch, I'm going to do all of them here. So I'm selecting my group in elevation. Since I can see the whole thing, I'm ungrouping it. And then I'm going to my filter. And then I'm selecting walls. And then I'm going to the top offset and just saying it's at 0. Because I copied it from level to level, it's going to recheck its constraints, right? It's smart enough to realize that it's on a new level.
Is that it? Is that only if you copy it as a group?
That's only if, well, yes and no, right? If I take, let's take one of these, let's take one of the walls, right, which is there. If I copy that, it should read it. If I unconstrain it, it should read that and redo it. Unfortunately, I have overlapping walls, but it's still going to maintain the height from the last one. Is the difference? Okay. Believe me, it wasn't always that way.
So if you were to edit the group, can you save as a new group? Let's say you want to edit the group to a new, or you're just doing a top offset. That's how you're changing it.
Yep. Yeah. Well, because it's already constrained to a level. It's because the first initial ones were constrained to 2 levels, and I'm copying from level to level, not doing an array, but actually copying explicitly from this level line to this level line to this level line.
I see.
It reads it as, okay, I'm supposed to be constrained to that level. And it's going to take it to the next level above it, because that was the relationship that was initially established.
So by copying level to level, it's changing its reference in some properties.
Yeah, so if I take the bottom, so I still have my bottom one grouped, right? So I do CO for copy. I'm going to take it from level 1, and I'm going to take it all the way up to the top, right? Now in this case, it's going to try and constrain to level 12.5, but I know I want it to go all the way past that and go up to level 13, right? So when I ungroup it, I filter it, make sure I only have walls selected, right? You'll see that its top constraint is at level 12.5, so it always goes to the next level. If I had done double levels with your, like I went and skipped a level, it would still read that relationship. With the 0 offset. So that's one where I need to change both.
I'm not sure why the offset automatically, like when I'm copying up,
because
it's
gonna retain the original height.
Okay, so
That's
it doesn't automatically do it then.
It automatically constrains them, but it doesn't change the relationship. It maintains that wall height is what it does.
Because when I just changed the level 2 to 3 core to delete the top offset, it made this one shorter.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
That's because you still have a group of a group, so you need to make sure you ungroup it.
ungroup everything?
No, just the ones you copied, because they're different. So think of it,
okay.
think of the group like an AutoCAD block.
Gotcha.
Yep. Yeah. Think of it like an
So
AutoCAD
then,
block.
so you ungroup it and then you regroup it and rename it, like core level 2 or something.
Yep.
Like that.
You
Okay.
got it.
Cool.
But and that's if it's going to repeat, right? If I know that that floor height's going to repeat every time, then yes.
Otherwise.
In this case, because you know I'm trying to get it out, like I'm assuming that I'm in your shoes trying to get the thing out the door.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna make it so that, and if it's different now, chances are they're gonna change later too, right? So I can still push and pull my level lines here. If I pin that level line, I can push and pull it to my heart's content. Everything still goes with it. So. No, we don't have to regroup it either. You can, but if you're going to repeat it. If it's not a repeating
It's not
it,
repeatable.
if it's not repeatable, don't bother grouping it. It's not worth it. Alright, I'll just finish mine out since we're here. And then we need to get a stair core in. GR? No, that's grid. Nope. I'm sure there is. Do you know that that's a repeatable element? Because
Yes.
it's rare that you're gonna be making multiple groups that quickly. So, I mean, if I honestly have never needed to use the group command.
Oh.
So, I mean, the easiest way to remember to look it up, I would go to user interface under my options and check my keyboard shortcut, and I would search for group. Yep, create model group, GP. GP. Makes sense? Somewhat. Yeah, that's actually, yeah, that's what you do, name it after what floor it comes up on. Almost done here. At 0 feet. And last one. Yep. So when you finish, you can go to the 3D view and take a look. Oh, I got one left. Crap. Okay, so filter that. Just supply. Perfect. There we go. Yeah, so once you finish, you can go to your 3D view, take a look at your work. Alright, so we should still have the section box on there. So what I'll do is turn my section box off in that view. And there we go.
section box is automatically generated when you do the, that one function.
Yeah, exactly. You can turn it on and turn off. So let's go ahead.
Oriented view function.
Yep, you got it. There we go. There's our core. Now, it looks like there's an issue here. So I copied, it looks like something happened with the copy, right? I might have been off kilter a little bit, or depending on how that level was handled. So just, there's going to be instances where you end up with like little lines like that. So try not to fuss over them unless they're extremely important not to have that line. Turn on shaded view and look at our piece. And you'll notice, right, I don't get a line at that intersection point. So unless I explicitly put a shaft opening in there, I'm not going to get that cut. And you guys have, it looks like from floor to floor, there's some issues there with the core. So something to be aware of. Right?
What do you say?
So I might have just done that. Yeah, that's probably what it was, that core that juts out. So I read the CAD plan wrong. That's okay. Again, coming back and editing is easy.
Yes. No, you got a question?
Okay. Okay, so let's go in and take a look at stairs. Is everybody cool with groups and walls? What did you? Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, they just, whenever I was moving my walls up and down, like the openings are all like one piece, not like needed, so a bit of a mess.
Okay, so you're failing.
Yeah, I'm
To
failing
succeed.
this one.
Failing to succeed.
Hey, I'll get an A on the stairs.
You get an A on the oh, that's you're brave.
How do I get out of this orange view?
Oh, to remove the section box.
Yeah.
It's in the properties of the 3D view.
Oh, okay.
So there's a line item for section box there.
So the section box works with that.
Where is the line item? Oh, there it is. Under extents.
Yep. So don't be confused with the scope box. Scope box is different than the section box. Scope box, in the way we've set this up, is driving a lot of the extents of what we're viewing, essentially.
But if you just look at the section box, it should give you that box to then see the section.
Yep, yeah, so if I turn it back on, so even though I'm in the same view, it's not going to go back to the original case. What I can do is, maybe in this view, we'll turn that on, section box goes. So I know that I have a CAD file in there that's extending
I
on.
think I temporarily hit
Yeah,
the
yep,
section box.
yep. Ah, yeah, careful of that one. So we'll cut through my core.
You're modifying the section box now.
Yep, just demonstrating, that's all. I can turn that off, and when I turn it back on, right, it's not going to remember. So if you're setting up a view with the section box, you just duplicate off the 3D view of what you want. So, alrighty, so that's that. Let's get in the other core that's in this that holds the stairs. And where is the other stairs down here? I know there's one up here. There should be one right here, right?
Yeah, it's in there.
It's in there?
Mm-hmm.
Properties. We're just going to do one.
It's in that bottom left.
Well,
yeah.
let's everybody save to the desktop with this where you're at right now.